Hi everyone, this is Andy from We Are Wellbeing. Welcome to episode 8 of the Wellbeing Insights series. As always, you can follow the WAW Insights hashtag on social media. Today I'm joined by Dom Haig again, our in-house nutritionist, specialist in all things sort of health and wellbeing. Hi Dom, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Andy. How are you?
Not so bad. Battling through another day of homeschooling, but we're doing all right.
Exactly, yeah, well done.
So Dom, what we're going to be talking about today?
Okay, so we're going to be looking at what is healthy eating, essentially. Having a very sort of basic run through over what constitutes a healthy diet, essentially. Looking at various things such as what is healthy eating, macro and micronutrients. And then we're going to look at digestion and gut health, all really important things, which goes towards a healthy eating, essentially.
Is it quite a hard subject to cram into 20 minutes, Dom?
Pretty much. I had quite a difficult time. I had to sort of rein myself in quite a bit in terms of what I was putting together, because nutrition is huge, and I could talk for probably a day on it. I could probably talk for half a day just on protein. So it's a vast arena, so I could go on and on and on. But we've basically crammed as much as we can, the very basics, into these next 20 minutes, and hopefully we'll provide some insightful information for people.
Brilliant. Okay, well, let's get cracking.
Cool. Okay, so let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. So originally this came from Hippocrates, and I think it's a really nice quote, because I think today I think a lot of people are too quick to go to supplements, to go to the doctors about issues that could be helped by placing more focus on the food that they consume. Obviously, with some health issues, you have to go and see your doctor. But I think a lot of things can be prevented or made better with greater focus on the food that we consume, eating well, not eating as much nutrient-sparse junk food, essentially. Just being more mindful over everything to do with nutrition and hydration. So I think it's quite an important thing to focus on when we're considering the health of the nation.
Definitely.
Okay, so cracking on. So what is healthy eating? So I really like these 10 aspects of 10 characteristics of what constitutes healthy eating pattern or a healthy diet. So the first one is that it respects personal taste preferences. So the principle of honouring personal preference is often overlooked and quite an underused sort of weapon in a dieter's sort of arsenal. Eating food that you enjoy is ultimately going to lead to greater enjoyment for you and greater adherence in terms of long-term sustainability. It's massively important in terms of long-term sustainability. If you're eating things that you don't enjoy, you're not going to stick to it. So I think that's really, really important. Healthy eating supports physical and mental performance goals. I think both of them are important. So trying to avoid undereating, trying to avoid overeating. Undereating, obviously, when you're dieting, you are going to be undereating to a certain degree, but avoiding the extremes of both of those. So not undereating so much, or overeating so that you are essentially, putting on too much body weight, body fat. So we need to optimize both physical and mental performance goals. Healthy eating covers macro and micronutrient needs. So we're going to be talking about macronutrients in a little bit, but essentially a macronutrient is something that the body requires in a large amount, and a micronutrient is something that the body requires in smaller amounts. So we need to make sure these bases are covered. We want to avoid any unnecessary and scientifically unfounded food restrictions. So no cutting out of food groups or foods for no apparent reason. One of the more common ones is cutting out gluten. And obviously, if you're diagnosed with celiac disease, then you obviously have to cut gluten out. But a lot of people cut it out as they believe it to be a healthier option. When actually, if you're cutting out gluten, you're missing out on a massively nutritious food group. So we want to try and avoid that. A healthy eating plan respects medical intolerances and allergies. So obviously, avoiding foods that cause you issues is important for your health. Healthy eating is convenient. So it has to be convenient for you to make it sustainable. So you don't have to eat out of Tupperware all the time. You don't have to eat every 2 hours to stoke your metabolism. It has to be convenient for it to be sustainable. Okay. Affordable. So what I mean about affordable is that there's a lot of noise about organic being more beneficial to the body than normal food. Obviously, that comes with a price, and all the research shows, a lot of systematic reviews show that organic food is not significantly more healthy than normal versions. Socially acceptable. So it doesn't cause anxiety or discomfort for yourself or people around you. Compatible with personal ideologies. So with this, it refers to the subjective beliefs that frame food choices for the individual. So somebody that is a vegetarian, they have reasons for eating a certain way, and so it would be wrong for people to put pressure on them to eat foods that aren't compatible with those ideologies. And then finally, healthy eating is something that is sustainable in the long term. So avoiding things like food avoidance diets, because they're just quite miserable, to be fair. So that is essentially the 10 characteristics.
Do you think that's changed somewhat in the last few years? Like, I remember years ago doing my PT qualifications and studying nutrition at sort of degree level, and fad diets were rife, you know.
Yeah.
But do you think people have started to cotton onto it a little bit more now and not sort of jump on the fads as much, or is it still quite prevalent?
I personally think it's got better, but it's still quite prevalent because there's always people out there that are looking to try and make money from people. So they take the same method, which is essentially a calorie deficit, and they dress it up. So they dress up the approach to make it sound like, oh, this is new. This is this is going to be really good. This is the diet for me. And they market it to a certain audience. They market it very well. And then maybe somebody that's tried a different fad and failed on it because it's unsustainable thinks, oh, this is going to be the one for me. They try that. Again, it has got better because there's more people out there promoting right information, which is great. But it's still there.
Yeah, it sort of seems like the fitness industry has developed in the last sort of 10 years, and people are more clued up onto smarter ways of training. It's not just guys doing weights and women on cross trainers. There's a bit of a mix now, and I think people seem to be a bit more clued up. But whenever we do training courses and webinars and stuff around basic nutrition, I always just go off the basis that if it excludes a whole food group, if it promises miracle results, if it's unsustainable, and if it's endorsed by a celebrity, it's probably a fad.
You've pretty much summed it up there. That is it. Yeah, you just got to avoid those things. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
If someone's making a fortune off a certain way of eating, then it's probably a fad. You should
absolutely.
You should. And I think it's one of those. It's as a wellbeing provider, I think for us, it's about making sure that people can access great information, great resources of health and well-being without having to spend the earth. It shouldn't, eating and living healthily shouldn't cost a fortune.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's a lot of great information out there. But there's also a lot of naff information, and I completely agree with you. As a wellbeing company, it's important to be crystal clear with everything and tell it how it is. And it really is quite simple. And it's cutting through all the rubbish that is out there. So yeah, I fully agree.
Dom, this is why you're delivering it and I'm not.
I think you do yourself a disservice there.
Well, no, I think it's one of those things. I think that one of the frustrations of the sort of nutrition industry is that people can get a baseline qualification and call themselves a nutritionist, and and that does a disservice to the people that are trained. For instance, for you guys listening, Dom has just this year last year got his masters in nutrition. A real labour of love, and whereas I can talk about nutrition, but quite often I could do a talk on nutrition, but then a couple of hours later you'll find me sat on the sofa eating a full family-sized pack of Maltesers. Dom, you probably wouldn't, would you?
I might have a couple and then I'll put it back.
But what I like about you, Dom, is that you practice what you preach. I've seen you eating out those Tupperware tubs every now and again. But I think you need that. Otherwise, it's just all a bit hypocritical.
Yeah, I think it's important for me to show a balance. So I drink. I eat foods that are classed as junk food, but it's all in moderation. And so I like to preach that to people and show that you can be nice and healthy and have a balance in life, essentially.
Brilliant. Good stuff, Dom. Right, moving on.
Okay, so moving on to macronutrients. So a macronutrient, as I previously said, is something that the body requires in a large amount. The three macronutrients are protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And we're going to start by looking at protein. Probably the most important macronutrient for a variety of reasons. Often known as the building blocks of life, and for good reason. Proteins are made of amino acids. Now, there are 21 amino acids, 12 of which are non-essential, which means the body can produce them itself. But 9 are essential, and these can't be synthesized in the body. They have to be provided by the food that we consume. So if you're not consuming enough protein, you're potentially going to be deficient in some of these essential amino acids. Now, protein has many, many functions. It's not just the stereotypical one is that it builds muscle. And obviously, it doesn't just do that. Obviously, it helps that. But it's important for so many things. It repairs and maintains the body. It's really important for the functioning of your immune system. So protein helps to form antibodies that fight infection and prevent infection. Protein builds enzymes that increase the rate of chemical reactions in our cells. It provides structure to cells. It provides transportation of molecules around the body. And it's really important in the creation of certain hormones, such as insulin and secretin. Now, insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. And secretin is a hormone that assists in the digestive process by stimulating the pancreas to release digestive juices. So that's really important for gut health. And finally, it's important in the creation of neurotransmitters in the brain. So neurotransmitters that are made from amino acids such as tyrosine, tryptophan, and histamine. So tyrosine helps to create dopamine, which gives you a feeling of well-being. It's a nice sensation. Tryptophan helps to create serotonin, which is the happy hormone. And then histamine, it helps with inflammatory response. Okay, so protein, the role of protein is vast, is really vast. So being deficient in it can have a serious impact on the way that we perform physically and how we feel mentally. So it's probably the most important macronutrient there is, basically. Okay, moving on to carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are the primary source of energy for the body and the brain. So when we eat carbohydrates, insulin is released, which allows the sugar, So carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, sugar, to enter the cells for either immediate energy or for later storage. So what happens is the pancreas makes something called glucagon, which signals to the liver to release the stored sugar when it's needed. So this interplay ensures that cells and the brain have a steady supply of blood sugar. So if anyone's ever gone on a very low-carb diet, they may have felt that they had a little bit of brain fog. This either goes or it stays permanently when people are on low-carb diets, and that's because the brain is being starved of glucose. It can be very hard to function at work, to be productive, to be creative. So we need to ensure that massive organ and very important organ in our heads is supplied with energy. Another important aspect of carbohydrates is that it prevents protein from being used as energy. So if carbs are very low, the body needs something, so it will break down protein to use as energy. And as we saw on the previous slide, the importance of protein, we don't need it being used as energy, we need it being used for all those other functions before. So typically there are two types of carbohydrates. It's seen as simple carbohydrates and complex. So simple carbohydrates tend to be formed of one or two sugars, tend to be things like basic table sugar, fruit, and then complex carbohydrates, they are made of 3 or more sugars, and there tend to be things like potato, rice, pasta, things like that are slower digesting. And another thing that's worth touching on is the impact that carbohydrates can have on sleep. So there's the hormone that I was talking about in the previous slide called tryptophan has an impact on the production of serotonin and melatonin. So when you combine a tryptophan containing food with carbohydrates, tryptophan is able to cross the blood-brain barrier more efficiently, which can have a really positive impact on sleep. If anyone's ever felt Christmas, when they sit down at lunch to have that big Christmas dinner, often contains chicken or turkey and a lot of carbohydrate, and then afterwards you want to sit down and sleep. That's that kind of interaction at play there. That's evidence of that. So it's really, really important. Carbs are very important as well to the body. Okay, and the third macronutrient is fat. Again, like carbohydrates, it's been demonized at some point over the last few decades. Certain fats have been deemed as bad. So we're going to look at what constitutes dietary fats. So 3 types. You've got your saturated fats, which are animal fats. Then you've got your monounsaturated, which typically come from olive oil, avocados, and your polyunsaturated, so omega-3 fish oil and omega-6 seed oils. So the benefits of all of those are massive. So omega-3s help reduce blood pressure, decreases liver fat and fights inflammation. And omega-6 supports the immune system and is used for energy. Obviously, certain fats have been termed as healthy or unhealthy. I think it's slightly unhelpful in a way because saturated fats have been deemed as unhealthy when actually saturated fats have a big role to play in the body. The danger is always in the dosage. And obviously people should focus more on mono and polyunsaturated, but saturated fats have their place. The one to avoid is to limit industrially produced transaturated fats. And that comes from a lot of processed food. And what's happened over time as our dietary habits have changed, our omega-3 to 6 ratio has kind of altered. Really, we want more in favor of omega-3, but what's happened is it's started to move more in favor of omega-6 just due to modern processing. So we want to try and reverse that more in favor of omega-3. But it's key to have a balance between all of these. And again, there isn't anything wrong with bits of processed food. It's the danger is in the dosage. As always, with a lot of things involving nutrition, it's important to have a balance and just be mindful of intake of every macronutrient, essentially. Now, digestion and gut health. massive role to play in with nutrition, how we feel in our brain. The gut is often called our second brain. The gut and the brain are always communicating, and how you feel in one can impact the other. So there are more active neurons at work in your gut than there are in your spinal cord. And we all know how important the spinal cord is for our functioning. We create a lot of our serotonin in the gut. So having good gut health is really important for nutrient uptake, because often people say you are what you eat, but actually it should be you are what you absorb. So if your gut health is compromised, you potentially are not going to be absorbing all the nutrients from the food that you're consuming. So it's really important to focus on getting that bacteria equilibrium. So focusing on wholesome and nutrient-dense food, promoting that healthy bacteria within the gut. And there are loads of different wholesome and nutrient-dense foods. So before people jump on the prebiotic and probiotic supplements, there are lots of wholesome food sources that you can get some naturally occurring prebiotic and probiotics from, such as things like dairy products, yogurt, kefir, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented vegetables, potatoes, oats, all things like this, fruits and vegetables, all really good sources of pre and probiotics. That's really important for gut health and that communication between the gut and the brain. Okay, so in summary, there should always be a focus on wholesome and nutrient-dense food. Ensure adequate protein from complete sources. Carbs shouldn't be feared. They're the main energy source of the body and brain. Dietary fats play an important role in the body. Fiber is vital for digestion and good gut health. And finally, keep hydrated. Happy cells mean healthy cells.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dom.
Excellent. You're welcome.
That was interesting. So, if anyone's got any questions for Dom, you can obviously get in touch with us through hello@wearewellbeing.co.uk. Dom is one of our associate trainers, but Dom is also an online nutritionist. So if anybody does want any one-to-one support, Dom, do you want to do a bit of a shout out for what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Andy said, I'm an online nutritionist, online coach. I work with a lot of people that are looking to improve their nutrition. They're looking to lose weight, just improve their general health. They might be looking to build muscle. So I look to help them understand nutrition in greater depth, busting myths that they may have heard, and just looking to educate for long-term sustainability. So I've worked with a lot of people helping to improve lots of different health markers, such as weight, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, cholesterol. It's a really interesting process. So I would urge anybody that has struggled with weight loss or has a weight loss or body composition goal to get in touch should you want to reach out for some help and accountability.
Good effort. Well done.
Thank you.
Take a breath now.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks again, Dom, and hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you found that insightful, and as hopefully you have done with the rest of the Wellbeing Insight series. Thanks again. If you've got any questions, do get in touch. Goodbye.